Hello and welcome to the very first CommoditAg YouTube Live powered by Farmer's Edge. I am your host, Brad Gebhardt, Digital Marketing Specialist here at Farmer's Edge. This is the first of 3 lives that we're going to be doing this week. Really excited to be discussing fungicides with a 20-year vet within the agriculture industry, Sam Knott from Atticus. Sam, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me on today, Brad. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about fungicides as well as a featured product, Aquila XL. But before we get to that, we have a featured agronomist who's going to be walking us through that entire discussion, and that's Cheryl McLaurin from Texas. Cheryl, how's it going?
Morning, Brad.
Well, you guys are absolutely awesome. I'm so excited to be executing these. This is going to be fun. These are going to be exciting, and these are going to be extremely informative and educational. You guys are the experts. Cheryl, I know you've got a ton of great questions for Sam to sort of dive into just how effective fungicides can be in protecting your crops. So why don't you guys dive into those questions?
Sure. So I'm really excited about this morning. You know, it's been a really tough year for a lot of our growers. I cover most of Texas, but then our company covers the entire plains in North America. And between it either raining so much we can't get planting started or not at all, everything's kind of stressed out. So I'm really excited to hear about a few of Atticus's products today. So Sam, can you tell me a little bit about Atticus, like where you guys are located and what you offer?
I'd be happy to. So Atticus LLC is a demand-driven manufacturer of generic herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides. We're based out of Cary, North Carolina, but we have representatives across the whole United States today. And we've got products from the West Coast to the Deep South where you're located and all across the Midwest. And we're really excited to be on here today to talk about it with you guys.
Awesome. So, you know, we always know that fungicides are pretty necessary, especially with as much rain as, you know, the I-states and the northern plains have been getting.
That's
and
right.
Then here in Texas, you know, we were able to get our crops up, but it's dry. But the thing is it's warm and humid at night. So we're getting some really, 70-degree nights. So we're seeing a lot of diseases. What kind of diseases are you seeing while you're outside?
Sure. So we have a broad audience today. So just like you referenced, the country's experiencing different weather events all across the country. It doesn't matter if you're a wet year or dry year, if you planted early, if you planted late in the season. We've seen tremendous results for the last 15 plus years with fungicide applications. So when you look across major corn or soybean producing states, some of those crops have been planted a little bit later this season. So now we're starting to get some growing degree units and the crops popping out of the ground and growing really fast. But each year we have different diseases, and every year those disease pressures can be high or they could be low. But for many corn crops, when you look at an early infestation of disease, usually anthracnose is a problem. Here in the Midwest and some of our major corn producing states, crown rots become a major problem early on. That's been really hammering yields the last couple of years. Same thing with soybeans. You've got a lot of different diseases that can impact both early development, early vegetative, all the way through the reproductive stages. And we've got disease pressure out there today that if we don't address that disease early, it's going to rob yields from our farmers' crops this season.
Yeah, and with commodity prices like they are, I know our input prices are high, but we're kind of betting that we're going to have these great commodity prices to help offset that and make it still a successful year.
That's right.
What kind of yield loss have you guys been seeing with like tar spot in previous years?
The tar spot can be a major yield robber in any disease I referenced, whether it's gray leaf spot, septoria. You talk to any expert out there, we know that every year we lose anywhere from 5 to 15% of our yield potential because of disease pressure in our growing crops. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of these diseases, if impacted early on, can take a lot more than that out. So when you're dealing with potential market prices today of $7, $8 corn, $16 beans, you got wheat prices that are $12 to $14. We know over the last 20 years, anytime we have a significant spike in grain prices, farmers want to invest in disease pressure. They want to eliminate that disease pressure by using good quality fungicides. And we see a huge run in fungicide applications every time we see a spike in commodity prices. So this is the perfect time to be having this conversation today, Cheryl.
Okay, so that sounds That sounds great. And Brad had mentioned the Aquila product, and I think that's what you
Yes.
guys were wanting to talk about today. Can you tell me what specifically makes that product the one that we need to be focusing on?
Yep. So Aquila XL is generic Aquila XL. It's a premix of azoxystrobin plus propiconazole, two active ingredients that have been on the market for a long time. And they've been proven every year on millions and millions of acres of corn, soybeans, and wheat to both prevent disease and to fight back some of the diseases we've already referenced here this morning. So when I think about Aquila XL, you could use that potentially on some of your wheat acres that are still out there. Also, specifically corn and soybeans. Aquila XL can be sprayed at multiple different times. And when I talk to my neighbor farmers or farmers all across the country that are proactively using fungicides to prevent disease from ever getting started, they look to those two active ingredients as a really solid foundation product to prevent that disease from ever robbing any of those bushels.
Gotcha. And I mean, having those two different modes of action, that's always good practice, to make sure we're reducing any kind of resistance or anything like that. And then also being able to really protect, because oxystrobin is that really long residual product and propiconazole is our contact product. So I think that's a great partnership right there in the tank. What's the right timing for these kind of fungicides when it's this mixed product?
Yeah. So in today's environment, if a farmer is on the fence about using the fungicide, his real question should be, when should I use it? And how much should I be using it and how often?
Yeah.
Okay. So in our corn crop today, if you've got a planned application between V3 and V10, Aquila XL, and that window is a great setup fungicide program.
Okay.
Then come back at the tassel application. That's when we historically have seen our biggest bang for our buck is that later application, preserving that final push to yield to get it into the bin. Then on the soybean acre, a lot of the farmers that are now pushing and averaging over 100 bushels to the acre, those guys out there are using at least 2, sometimes 3 applications of fungicides. They'll start early in early vegetative states to keep any disease pressure out before that soybean plant goes reproductive in about another 30 to 45 days.
Okay. Now, it's really hot down here in Texas. Are there any limitations when it comes to temperatures or precipitation that we need to be aware of before we put it out there? And also as far as application methods, what limitations do we have?
Yeah, so always read and follow the label based upon weather impacts, extreme heat, extreme stress. I would talk to an agronomist like Cheryl today to make sure that the timing is proper. And you're also using the right type of adjuvants or carriers to get the fungicide onto the crop and then into the crop.
Gotcha.
The other thing I'd always look for is understand the different dynamics for each of the different markets. So we're talking to a lot of different farmers today in different geographies, and understand what your local disease pressures are and make sure that you're dialing in the right time to get your fungicide sprayed. And you ask about different types of application. I mean, across the country, ground rigs are so common. Whether you're a farmer doing your own application or you have a retail partner, I mean, we've got tens of thousands of ground rigs that can cover corn, soybeans, and cover a lot of acres rapidly. Where other areas that really rely on aerial application with helicopters and airplanes. And Aquila XL is a great partner to go either with the ground rig or the aerial rig to get that fungicide sprayed.
Okay, well, that's really good to know. Yeah, and I mean, we've been looking through our crop models here on Farm Command to see what we're at risk for right now, and I'm seeing some northern blight come up, maybe some rust, that sort of stuff, depending on where in the nation you are and how much rain you've been getting lately.
Right.
Are we going to run into any issues with late season applications when it comes to dry down?
Yeah, so the diseases you referenced, the best treatment is a preventative application. Once you get those disease infestations in corn or soybeans, you're already losing yield potential by the time the disease has started.
Yeah.
So if you're projecting a disease outbreak in your area, do a preventative application ahead with Aquila XL to prevent that disease from ever starting. Okay, that's number one.
Yeah.
And then repeat your second question for me, Cheryl.
Just are we going to have any issues if we wanted to do this with like our side dressing or an insecticide application there? Right.
So great time to apply Aquila XLs with the herbicide or with a other insecticide. And as far as dry down conditions late in the fall, Right now,
Mhm.
farmers are more interested about maximizing yield potential and maximizing profit per acre.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have a healthier green crop that's going to yield all kinds of yield than one
Mhm.
that's going to drag out and be disease infested in the fall, because a healthier crop will dry down and die more
Yeah.
naturally versus a disease infested crop.
That's very true. That's very true. And it probably was going to make harvest a little bit easier if it's a nice, healthy plant versus one that we've got issues with lodging or any other thing else
That's right.
going on. And, you know, I'm down here in South Texas. It's very rare that we have an issue with dry down. So that's good
Right.
to know.
Yes.
You know, when we talk about this year in particular and supply issues and everything like that, are we able to get this out pretty easily? And, you know, how's pricing going on it?
Yes. So every other product being purchased and sprayed on this crop this year, the prices are higher than normal, and supply has been
Mhm.
extremely tight due to the environment around the planet for the last 2 years.
Gotcha.
So our industry sold out of fungicides last summer, the summer of 2021.
Oh
And
gosh.
due to the issues with production this year and delayed production, there isn't the normal supply sitting in what we call the channel. Okay. That's the
Gotcha.
manufacturing, that's the distribution centers that supply farmers with their products.
Hmm.
And historically, I can think of 3 or 4 times in my career where we've seen some really high commodity prices and fungicides sell out hard and fast.
Okay.
So if you're working with a farmer and they have not made their purchase on fungicides and insecticides and adjuvants, nutritionals yet, I would get on the phone right now and make those purchases before those products are completely sold out and unavailable for the next 30, 60 days.
Gotcha. So kind of a run, don't walk situation.
That's
I
right.
just looked at CommoditAg.com, which is where we offer y'all's product, and it is in stock. There is a limitation on how much you can buy. So that's definitely something people need to be aware of. But we do have it available, which is great. Can you tell me a little bit about application rate and application cost?
Yeah, so I'll talk about application rate. I generally don't get into the pricing side of it. I talk
Mhm.
agronomy and understanding how to use the
Gotcha.
product. So typically the rate for corn would be anywhere from 10 ounces to 14 ounces per acre of Aquila XL.
Mhm.
So if you're spraying early, like I'm talking V3 corn to V10, you can certainly get by with the lower rate of 10 to 10 and a half ounces per acre. Or
Gotcha.
you could use the full rate of 14 if you want to add a little bit more residual power, an extra 3 to 5 days of residual in the crop. But
Okay.
those are typical rates per acre corn or soybeans.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And then again, like just to reiterate what you said, yields are so important this year when it comes to our commodity pricing, that, you know, the return on investment is there when it comes to these protectants.
Right.
So I think that's really great. That was all the questions I have. You know, what does it do and where can we get it, kind of thing. That's always
Right.
the issue this year is supply chain. So that's what we've been
Yep.
hearing over and over again. So I really appreciate you answering any of my questions, Brad. Anything else?
Well, that's great, guys. I think there was a ton of great information there where people are probably going straight to CommoditAg.com, looking up Atticus or Aquila XL and adding to cart as much as they can and getting their hands on what's available. Sam, thank you so much. Thanks also to Cheryl for joining us. Sam, 3 years at Atticus now. You've been super active with those guys and doing
Right.
great. Like final word from the company as well as a final thought on Atticus XL or Aquila XL.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So one last agronomic tidbit: when you're applying a quality fungicide like Aquila XL, make sure you use a quality adjuvant with it. There's nothing more
Good point.
important than making sure that whether you're spraying with an aerial applicator or a ground rig, that the material you're purchasing and counting on lands on the crop, gets into the crop, and then translocates into the leaf on the crop. Always
For
look
sure.
to either partner with either a PGR or another macro or micronutrient that's also really critical this time of year for your growing crop. There's lots of different ways that benefit not just a fungicide, but a micronutrient, macronutrient, adjuvant, PGR, and don't forget your insecticide as well. Okay?
That's a really good point. Yeah. So we're trying to limit passes across the field. And since Aquila is so flexible when it comes to
That's right.
application timing and tank mixing, let's get the most bang for the buck with diesel prices like they are, for sure.
You got it. Yep. And Atticus LLC is a great company. If you haven't heard of us, we're one of the few American-owned and operated companies out there. We're rapidly growing. We've launched nearly 200 herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides over the last several years.
Wow.
So no matter what crop or what state you're in, we probably have a really good agronomic fit for your acre, and we'd be happy to service your needs.
Great.
Excellent. Well, this was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate both of you making the time today, as well as everybody who took the time to watch this this live, or if you're watching in the archive, thanks for joining us as well. Subscribe to Farmer's Edge on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you can get after it, get growing more with less with CommoditAg, powered by Farmer's Edge. Thanks to everybody for tuning in today, and thanks to you both as well again.